We've all heard it before. It's not good to get too attached. Hi, everybody. I'm Ricki Heller from rickiheller.com. I'm a book coach, writer, and editor, and I help you get your story into the world so you can share it with other people and finally get that book done. Today, I want to talk about this whole concept of attachment. I was having a conversation with my cousin the other day, and she was telling about a friend of hers who recently got divorced after many years together with her husband. And it was one of those situations where she sort of deferred to her husband on everything and let him take care of the bills and let him take care of the trips and arrange things in the house and so on. And when he left, she just felt devastated and completely abandoned and alone. And my friend said, she got too attached. And so I think of that concept. I was talking to my Write Together group last week about this concept of attachment with our manuscripts or our first drafts. And it reminded me of a conversation I had with a different client a few weeks ago where we were doing developmental editing together. And I provided my summary notes, which is this big document of notes about your manuscript. So I'll go through the manuscript in great detail and I'll take notes throughout. And then I'll compile this document where I make suggestions and observations and I have questions and so on. And in this case, it was a pretty long book. So the document itself was also quite long. It was more than 30 pages long. And when he got it, he arranged for our next meeting. He was going to take time to go through everything and reflect on it. And he said, my friends who were first time authors told me, don't get too attached to your manuscript. And I thought that was a great reflection on this concept of attachment too, because when it comes to writing, very much like in relationships or people with their possessions that they really, really love, we become so attached to our first draft that when it comes to editing and making changes, it can feel like pain to make those changes. It can feel like somebody is stealing something from us or somebody is taking away something that we love. And I want to change that because I think it's really, really important not to get too attached to your first draft. Why? Because you may find in the editing process, whether you're doing your own editing or whether you're working with a professional editor who has, an outside view of the work, you may find that upon reflection, you want to take it in a whole new direction. Or you might realize that something you thought was true in your book isn't, or something you thought worked well at the first go round doesn't, or needs to be removed to improve the book overall. So when we get too attached, though, that's when we don't make those kinds of changes because we feel like this is too important to us. I put too much work into it. I can't let this go now. And one way that I use to really avoid that kind of attachment, and I hope this can be a helpful tactic for you too, is I remember this phrase, it's all good and it's all garbage. What do I mean by that? Well, it's all good in the sense that when you're writing through the first time, don't judge, don't criticize, just get everything out on the page. That's usually how we create our first draft. But then, like I said, we can become very attached to it. So the other part of that statement is it's all garbage. If you think of your work in terms of any of it, it's all disposable. Any of it can be removed, any of it can be deleted, any of it can be rearranged, and it doesn't matter because it's all impermanent. If you think of it in those terms, it's like you're just creating something as you go. It's malleable, it can be altered, it can be massaged, it can be tweaked, and you can end up with something much, much better. What I do if, let's say, because this happens to writers a lot, you're going to have a passage or a part of your chapter that you just love because you put so much work into it and you love the way it sounds and it means a lot to you. But when you look at the book as a whole, it may not fit in there quite right. What I do is I cut and paste into a new document. I have a whole document going of little bits and pieces that I love that I may use sometime down the road. I don't want to discard it entirely. I save it in a file. I can probably count on one hand or on two fingers the number of times I've actually gone back and used those little tidbits that I cut out. But that's not the point. The point is psychologically, I know they're there, so I'm okay with cutting them. Anything that allows you to be unattached to your writing is going to be useful in the end. So I hope that's helpful. The two takeaways I'd say is don't be too attached. Remember that everything's good and everything's also garbage. And that way you can move on and you're not going to cling to something just because it took a lot of time or it has sentimental value, even when it's not the best thing for your book, because you always want to go with what's the best for the whole book. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. For more tips like this, please go to rickiheller.com/subscribe, and you can subscribe to my weekly emails every Sunday. Hope to see you there.